The Great Minds Video 6. Your subconscious mind is running your life, and you don't even know it. Sigmund Freud, Napoleon Hill, Carl Jung, Plato. You are not in control of your life. I know that's not what you want to hear, but stay with me for the next 20 minutes, and I will prove it to you. And more importantly, I will show you exactly how to take that control back. Right now, as you watch this video, there is a part of your mind operating completely beneath everything you are consciously thinking. It is recording, processing, making decisions, sending signals that determine your emotions, your habits, your automatic reactions, your daily choices. You have never directly accessed this part of your mind. You cannot. That is literally why it is called the subconscious. Here is what's terrifying about that. You wake up every morning and you believe you are making choices. You believe you are deciding what to do, how to respond, what to pursue, what to avoid. You believe you are the author of your life. But Sigmund Freud, the man who spent his entire career mapping the hidden architecture of the human mind, concluded something that most people are not ready to accept. He said the majority of human behavior is not driven by conscious choice. It is driven by unconscious programming. Programming that was installed in you before you were old enough to question any of it. Programming you cannot see. Programming you are probably not even aware exists. Napoleon Hill, who spent 20 years interviewing 500 of the most successful people in American history, reached the same conclusion from a completely different direction. He said the single biggest difference between people who achieve extraordinary things and people who stay stuck is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not even hard work. It is what they believe about themselves at the level below conscious thought. And Carl Jung, Freud's greatest student, who eventually broke away to build his own school of psychology, said something that should stop you completely in your tracks. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that again. You will call it fate. Everything you have ever blamed on bad luck, bad timing, the wrong circumstances, the wrong people, Jung is saying a significant portion of that was actually your own unconscious programming running on autopilot, creating results you never consciously chose. That is either the most terrifying thing you have ever heard, or the most liberating. Because if unconscious programming created the results you have now, then changing that programming can create completely different results. That is what this video is about. Let's go. Part 1, the iceberg. Let me start with a picture that will make everything else in this video make sense. Freud used the image of an iceberg to describe the human mind. The tip of the iceberg, the small part you can see above the water, is your conscious mind. This is where your logical thinking happens. Your deliberate decisions. Your rational analysis. The voice in your head that reads these words. The part of you that right now is processing what I am saying and deciding whether you agree. That conscious mind feels enormous to you. It feels like everything. It feels like you. But beneath the surface, invisible, massive, and operating at a scale you cannot fully comprehend, is the subconscious mind. The part that never sleeps. The part that is always running. The part that processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second while your conscious mind processes about 40 versus 11 million. Freud estimated that the conscious mind represents only about 10% of your total mental activity. The other 90% is happening in the dark, below the surface, without your direct awareness or consent. Let me make that real with some examples you will recognize immediately. Have you ever driven somewhere familiar, to work, to a friend's house, somewhere you've been 100 times, and arrived without any real memory of the drive? You were thinking about something else entirely. Your body navigated the car, managed the speed, responded to traffic, made every required decision, completely without your conscious involvement. That is your subconscious running the show. Have you ever tried to change a habit, eating, exercising, waking up early, procrastinating, and failed, even though you genuinely wanted to change? You made the decision consciously. You set the intention consciously. You reminded yourself repeatedly. And still the old behavior won. That is your subconscious resisting. Because the habit lives down there, not up here. And the subconscious is significantly more powerful than the conscious mind in any direct conflict between the two. Have you ever reacted to someone with sudden anger, or unexpected sadness, or a wave of anxiety that seemed to come from nowhere? Before you could think, before you could choose, the reaction was already happening. That is a subconscious trigger, an old wound being reactivated by a present experience. The subconscious recognizes a pattern, a tone of voice, a facial expression, a particular combination of circumstances that it associates with something painful from the past, and it fires the old response before your rational mind has any say in the matter. None of this is weakness. None of it is a character flaw. It is biology. It is the design of the human mind. It is a system that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to keep you alive and safe. The problem is that the system keeping you safe in a prehistoric environment is not automatically optimized for building a business, maintaining healthy relationships, or becoming the person you actually want to be in 2024. The programs are old, but they are still running. And here is what Carl Jung said about that, and this is the line that started my obsession with this topic. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Part 2. How your subconscious was written. Now here is the part that will make you look at your entire life differently. Your subconscious was primarily programmed between the ages of 0 and 7. Before you could read, before you could reason critically, before you had the cognitive machinery to evaluate information and decide whether it was true, you were absorbing everything around you. The emotional tone of your household, the messages being spoken and unspoken about money and worth and possibility, the way adults around you handled conflict or avoided it, the way love was given or withheld, and you were recording all of it as foundational truth about how the world works. Neuroscientists call this the critical period of brain development. The brain of a child under 7 operates primarily in theta brain waves, the same slow, receptive brain state that adults enter during hypnosis or deep meditation. It is a state of pure, uncritical absorption. Everything goes in, nothing gets filtered, which means that everything the adults around you believed about life, whether they knew they were communicating it or not, went directly into your operating system without any firewall. Their fears became your fears. Their beliefs about what is possible became your beliefs about what is possible. Their relationship with money, with success, with their own worth, became the template your subconscious uses to navigate those same areas in your adult life. And most of those people, your parents, your teachers, your early caregivers, were themselves running programs installed by their parents, who got them from their parents, who got them from theirs. Most of them had never examined their own programming. They were passing on inherited beliefs they had never questioned, about a world that may not even exist anymore. Let me give you some specific examples of how this shows up. Program 1. Money is the root of all evil. Maybe you heard this explicitly. Maybe it was a religious message. Maybe you watched money cause genuine suffering in your family, fights, breakups, shame. Whatever the source, the message got recorded. Money equals danger. Money equals conflict. Money equals corruption. Now you are an adult. You consciously want to be financially successful. You work hard toward it. But every time real money gets close, something happens. You make an impulsive decision that costs you everything. You walk away from an opportunity that feels somehow wrong. You cannot seem to hold on to wealth even when it comes. Your conscious mind calls it bad luck. Your subconscious is operating exactly as programmed, protecting you from the thing it learned to associate with danger and destruction. Program 2. Don't get too big for your boots. Maybe your family or community had strong beliefs about staying humble, about not standing out, about people who got too successful becoming arrogant or losing their roots. The message: ambition is dangerous. Standing out makes you a target. Stay where you belong. Now as an adult, every time you are about to take a real step forward, launch the business, take the opportunity, charge what your work is worth, an inexplicable anxiety arrives. You downplay your achievements. You make yourself smaller in conversations. You self-sabotage at the exact moment of potential breakthrough. Your conscious mind calls it imposter syndrome. Your subconscious is running a protection program that was designed, with genuine love, to keep you safe from a specific social danger that may not even apply to your life anymore. Program 3. I am not enough. Before we get to the reprogramming methods, I want you to see something that I find genuinely extraordinary about this topic. 3 completely separate thinkers, working in completely different fields, in completely different centuries, with completely different methods, all arrived at the same fundamental insight. Plato arrived there through pure philosophical inquiry in ancient Greece. He concluded that the soul has a rational part and a non-rational part, and that the non-rational part dominates most people's lives without their knowledge. Freud arrived there through clinical observation of patients in Vienna in the 1890s and early 1900s. He concluded that the unconscious mind contains repressed material, memories, desires, fears, conflicts, that exerts powerful influence on conscious behavior without the person's awareness. Jung arrived there through his own clinical work, and went even deeper. He said the unconscious is not just personal. It contains what he called the collective unconscious, inherited patterns of thought and behavior that are shared across all of humanity. Archetypes, ancient programs so deep they predate individual human experience. And Napoleon Hill arrived there through 20 years of empirical research into the most successful people who ever lived. He concluded that the subconscious mind is not just a storage system, it is a transmission system. That what you consistently feed your subconscious, the images, the beliefs, the emotional states you repeatedly inhabit, it broadcasts outward and literally shapes your external reality. Hill called it the law of autosuggestion. The idea that you can deliberately use repetition and emotional intensity to install new programs in the subconscious, the same way the original programs were installed in childhood. For completely different people, for completely different paths, one destination. The subconscious runs the show, and the most important work any human being can do is to understand what is running, and take deliberate control of it. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Part 5, 5 Methods to Reprogram Your Subconscious. This is the section that everything else has been building toward. Because understanding the problem is only useful if you know what to do about it. And the beautiful truth, the genuinely liberating truth, is that the subconscious can be reprogrammed. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes a willingness to look at the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. But it absolutely can be done. Here are the 5 most powerful methods. Each one is backed by psychology, neuroscience, and the lived experience of people who actually transformed their results. Method 1, Repetition, the native language of the subconscious. The subconscious mind learned through repetition in the first place. Every belief you currently hold was installed through some form of repetition, either a single event with enormous emotional charge, or a message that was repeated so many times it became background noise that the subconscious accepted as reality. Which means that the most fundamental reprogramming tool is deliberate, consistent, sustained repetition of the beliefs you want to install. Napoleon Hill called this autosuggestion. The practice of consciously, deliberately, repeatedly feeding your subconscious new information to replace old programming. This is not positive affirmations in the way most people practice them, standing in front of a mirror and unconvincingly telling yourself things you do not believe. That does not work because the subconscious detects incongruence. It knows when the message being delivered does not match the emotional reality of the person delivering it. The key is repetition over time, with genuine focus, until the new belief starts to feel less foreign. Until the subconscious stops filtering it as new information and starts filing it as established truth. The process is gradual. It requires patience. But it works, because it is using exactly the same mechanism that installed the original programs. Method 2, Emotional Intensity. The accelerant repetition alone is slow. The reason childhood programming was installed so quickly and so deeply is that it was delivered with enormous emotional intensity. Moments of fear, of shame, of love, of excitement. The subconscious marks these as critical information precisely because of the emotional charge attached to them. You can use this same mechanism deliberately. When you are working to install a new belief or vision, do not just think about it intellectually. Feel it, make it emotionally real. Put yourself in the experience of already having achieved what you are working toward, not as a fantasy, but as a felt reality. The emotions of confidence, of gratitude, of fulfillment. This is not magical thinking. This is applied neuroscience. Emotionally charged memories are processed differently in the brain than neutral information. They create stronger neural pathways. They are retained more deeply. They exert more influence on future behavior. The subconscious is not primarily a thinking machine. It is primarily a feeling machine. Reach it in the language it actually speaks. Method 3, Environment Design. The continuous programmer Freud observed something critical. The subconscious is always absorbing environmental input, far more of it than we consciously register. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, the conversations you participate in, the visual environment you inhabit, the stories you tell yourself about yourself in casual conversation. All of it is continuously feeding the subconscious new data that it uses to update or confirm existing programs. This means that your environment is reprogramming you constantly, whether you intend it to or not, whether the programming is moving you forward or backward. If you spend 3 hours a day consuming content that normalizes mediocrity, that is 3 hours of mediocrity programming. If you spend your social time with people who reinforce limiting beliefs about what is possible for someone like you, who laugh at ambition, who find comfort in shared average expectations, that is continuous programming toward the average. And the reverse is equally true. Rockefeller surrounded himself exclusively with builders and thinkers. He did not spend his time with people who found reasons why things could not be done. That was not arrogance. That was environmental engineering. He understood that the people around you are constantly contributing to the programming that shapes your results. Design your environment deliberately, because it is going to program you regardless. The only question is whether you are choosing what gets installed. Method 4, Investigative Journaling. The surgery sometimes, especially with deep wounds from early childhood, the kind that carry enormous emotional charge, simple repetition and environment design are not sufficient on their own. The old program has too much weight. It has been confirmed too many times. It is connected to too many memories and emotional experiences. This is where Freud's most practical insight becomes directly useful. Make the unconscious conscious. Bring the hidden program into the light where the Rational mind can evaluate it, not to fight it, not to suppress it harder, but to see it clearly, to trace it back to its origin, to understand it as a conclusion reached by a child in specific circumstances rather than as a permanent truth about reality. Investigative journaling is one of the most powerful tools for this. Not diary journaling, not gratitude journaling. Specific, targeted, aggressive self-inquiry on paper. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? What is the earliest memory I have of feeling this way? How old was I? What were the circumstances? Who was there? What conclusion did I reach in that moment? And then, and this is the critical step, ask, was that conclusion actually true? Or was it the best explanation a child with limited information and limited emotional resources could construct from the evidence available to them in that moment? Because almost always, when you trace a limiting belief to its origin, you find a child doing their best to make sense of an experience that was confusing or painful, and you realize that the conclusion they reached, I am not enough, the world is not safe, success means rejection, was understandable given what they knew, but it was not objective truth. It was a story that has been running ever since as if it were fact. The moment you can see the story as a story rather than as reality, you take away its power. Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong work of integrating the unconscious material into conscious awareness. He believed it was the central task of human psychological development, and he said most people never do it. They spend their lives being controlled by material they have never examined, wondering why their results keep repeating the same patterns. Method 5. The hypnagogic window. The open door. This is the most underrated and most immediately accessible of all the reprogramming methods. The human brain does not transition instantly between sleep and waking. There is a transitional state, the period just before you fall asleep and just after you wake up, that neuroscientists call the hypnagogic state. In this state, brain wave activity slows from the alert beta and gamma waves of normal consciousness to the slow, receptive theta waves, the same brain state that characterize early childhood, the same state in which the original programming was installed. In this window, the critical, filtering, skeptical conscious mind relaxes, and the subconscious becomes directly, unusually accessible. Napoleon Hill was very specific about this. He said the period just before sleep is the most powerful moment of the day for subconscious programming, and the most wasted moment for most people, who fill it with scrolling their phone, watching disturbing news, or replaying everything that went wrong during the day. What you feed your mind in that window before sleep, the final emotional and cognitive input before consciousness lets go, the subconscious processes deeply during sleep. It treats it as a priority. It works with it while you are unconscious. It starts to integrate it as reality, which means that those last 10 minutes before you sleep are not downtime. They are some of the most important programming minutes of your entire day. Use them deliberately. Direct your final waking thoughts toward the person you are becoming, the vision you are building, the beliefs you are installing. Feel them, make them emotionally real, and let sleep do the integration work. The morning window, the first few minutes after waking, before the conscious mind fully engages, is equally powerful and equally under-utilized. Your access to the theta state is still partially available. What you feed yourself in that window sets the emotional and cognitive tone for the entire day. 2 small windows, every single day, used deliberately over months and years. The results are not small. Part 6. Why most people never do this work before the closing. I want to be honest with you about something. Everything I have described in this video is real. It is scientifically supported. It is practically applicable. And it is genuinely transformative. And most people will never do it. Not because they are lazy. Not because they do not want better results. But because this work requires something that is genuinely difficult to do. It requires you to stop blaming the external world for your internal results. It is far more comfortable to believe that your circumstances are the reason you have not achieved what you want. That the economy is wrong. That you were born into the wrong family. That you got the wrong opportunities. That other people had advantages you did not. Some of that may even be true. Circumstances are real. Structural disadvantages are real. But Freud and Hill and Jung and Plato, none of whom were naive about the difficulty of human life, were all pointing to the same thing. That inside the envelope of whatever external circumstances exist, there is a massive range of outcomes. And what determines which end of that range you land on is primarily internal, not external. The subconscious programming running in the background of your life is either expanding that range or contracting it. Either opening it. The work is not out there. The work is in here. Your subconscious mind was written by people who were themselves working from inherited programs. written before you had any say in the matter, written in circumstances that no longer exist, by a child trying to make sense of a world that has since completely changed, but it is still running, every day, shaping what you believe you deserve, shaping what opportunities you can perceive, shaping the ceiling above which you will not let yourself rise, and the floor below which you will not let yourself fall. That programming is not your destiny, it is your starting point. And the distance between where that starting point has taken you and where you actually want to go, that distance is not determined by luck or timing or the circumstances of your birth. It is determined by whether you are willing to do the most important work that exists. Make the unconscious conscious. Examine what is running, and deliberately, patiently, consistently, rewrite it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The choice of what to do with that truth is yours. If this video shifted something for you, if you felt something click, share it with one person who you think is ready to hear it. And subscribe, because this is what we do here. We go this deep, every single week.